What if Europe's most road-ready fighter jet has a weakness you can't see from the cockpit? Sweden's Gripen can land on highways, refuel from a truck, and be back in the air in minutes. So, why are NATO planners still uneasy? Here's the twist. The jet's toughest missions can be slowed by something that never flies: paperwork, because when a critical component is controlled abroad, a legal off switch can appear in the supply chain. In peacetime, that's an annoyance. In wartime, it can be a tempo killer. The question we'll answer today is simple. How can a fighter built to survive on shattered runways still be vulnerable to approval pipelines an ocean away? And if that vulnerability is real, what does it mean for NATO's readiness when minutes decide outcomes? Sweden designed the Gripen for the nightmare scenario. Runways cratered, bases under missile threat, supply lines frayed. The solution was BAS 90, a lattice of short road strips scattered across forests and farmland. Pilots could drop onto a straight stretch of highway, taxi to a hidden pad, refuel from a truck, rearm from a trailer, and launch again with a tiny crew. The entire system assumes chaos and keeps flying anyway. When Sweden joined NATO in March 2024, those strengths stopped being just a national hedge. They became alliance assets. In any conflict along the Baltic Rim, large air bases will be prime targets. A fighter that shrugs at cratered concrete and thrives in the margins offers something rare: resilience without a giant footprint. But rugged operations don't eliminate upstream dependencies. Aircraft are ecosystems. Airframes, engines, software, spares, the technical data that makes maintenance legal. Some of those components are designed or controlled abroad, which means foreign rules can shape what moves, where, and when. The Gripen's road war DNA is real, yet the part that makes thrust points outside Sweden. That's where the vulnerability begins, not on the highway, but in the approvals and pipelines that feed it. The hinge of this story is the engine. Early Gripens use the RM-12, derived from a U.S. design. The newer Gripen EF flies with the American F-4's 14. That single choice binds Sweden and any buyer to U.S. export law. Two quiet acronyms do the heavy lifting: ITAR and EAR. They don't just govern whole aircraft sales, they reach into spares, technical data, software keys, depot work, and re-exports. If a hot section module, fuel control unit, or digital manual has U.S. origin, the paperwork follows it wherever it travels. In peacetime, this is mostly friction: licenses, provisos, and compliance audits. In a crisis, it becomes tempo. A crate held up over one license code means a grounded jet, cannibalization elsewhere, and a maintenance clock that won't stop ticking. Even a friendly approved that arrives late acts like a soft no when hours matter. This isn't unique to Sweden. Most modern jets carry foreign content. The reusable mental model is foreign veto risk. Whenever a critical component is controlled abroad, another capital can influence your timeline. The mitigation playbook is dull but decisive. Pre-cleared licenses, wider tech release scopes, licensed MRO inside the alliance, interchangeable modules, and shared inventories. Air power runs on fuel and thrust, but also on signatures. Saab and Sweden's defense establishment sell a promise: affordable combat power that keeps flying when bases are bombed. FMV and the Swedish Air Force want availability, local touch labor, and deep technical access so crews can fix engines and avionics without begging abroad. Their incentive is autonomy plus exports to sustain the industrial base. Across the Atlantic sits GE Aerospace, owner of the F-400 design, spares pipelines and licensing. The U.S. policy triad, states DDTC, DoD's DTSA, and Commerce for dual-use items, guards sensitive technology and aligns transfers with strategy. Their incentive is security first, predictability second. Operators and buyers, from NATO members to prospects, want hours on wing, not paperwork. They push for broad tech release, MRO, pre-approved spares, and surge clauses. NSPA, finance ministries, and export credit agencies translate those asks into contracts and guarantees. Then come the deciders. Program managers, lawyers, and compliance officers whose provisos either unlock speed or bake in delay. Adversaries exploit any pause, betting a stuck license equals a grounded jet. In air power, whoever controls signatures controls tempo. Start with Saab and the Swedish Air Force. They want a fighter that's cheap to run, brutally reliable, and sovereign enough to keep flying when politics get messy. Next is GE and the U.S. State Department. They own the engine and the approvals that travel with it. Their incentive is clear: protect sensitive tech, sustain standards, and align sales with U.S. policy. Now zoom out to NATO operators and prospects. They crave availability, interoperability, and predictable supply lines. But predictability depends on decisions they don't fully control. That's the tension. Sweden sells autonomy. The engine adds dependency. One more stakeholder: adversaries. They can't veto parts, but they can stress the pipeline until any bureaucratic delay becomes combat power. Whose timeline wins when pressure spikes? Consider Colombia. For years, it sought a replacement for aging K-4s. Multiple bidders circled: European, American, and Swedish. By 2010-25, reporting suggested Bogota was leaning toward Gripen EF, attracted by sensors, favorable operating costs, and technology transfer. Then the hidden clause surfaced: the engine. The F4 14 is American, so approvals don't end in Stockholm. They also pass through Washington. That didn't kill interest, but it changed leverage. Negotiators now faced two audiences: Sweden for the airframe and industrial offsets, and the United States for engines, spares, and upgrades. Diplomacy became supply chain insurance. What happens if a license stalls? If end-use conditions tighten? Colombia's calculus became a live demonstration of foreign veto risk. The jet's appeal was real. So was the dependency. Even optimistic timelines carried an asterisk. Deliveries and sustainment require more than one capital signature. Whether the deal closes or pivots is beside the point. The case shows how a single foreign-controlled component can turn a purchase into a three-party negotiation, one that must stay aligned not just at contract signing, but for decades. Colombia has hunted a replacement for its aging K-4s, weighing American, European, and Swedish offers. The Gripen EF tempted Bogota with modern sensors, low operating costs, and promises of industrial participation. Then came the fine print: the engine. Because the F4 14 is American, approvals run through Washington as well as Stockholm. That doesn't kill the deal. It changes leverage. Negotiators now pitch two audiences: Saab for the airframe and offsets, the United States for engines, spares, and upgrades. Every delivery schedule, tech transfer clause, and re-export option carries an asterisk. Will the license arrive on time, and under what conditions? Colombia's calculus becomes a lesson in foreign veto risk. Performance may win the brief, but permissions determine the timeline, and, in a crisis, the sortie rate. Stockpiles help, but approvals still govern momentum. Argentina has chased a modern fighter for years, and the Gripen, especially via Brazil's line, looked like a pragmatic fit. Then the multinational supply chain exposed a veto risk: British origin content, ejection seats, subsystems, even documentation chains could require UK sign-off. For Buenos Aires, where politics with London stay sensitive, that isn't a footnote. It's a structural hazard. The problem wasn't capability. The Gripen fits on cost, availability, and austere ops, but governance. Each British component added another approval path that could tighten without warning. Optimistic signals one year can reverse after a cabinet shuffle the next. Argentina kept alternatives on the table, some less capable, some simpler politically, because the safest airplane on paper becomes risky when supply chains vote. The takeaway: performance sells, permissions decide. Dispersed basing is NATO's hedge against missiles and cratered runways, and Gripen excels there. But sortie rates are built on engines, spares, and the permissions to move them. That's where the approval clock intrudes. High-usage parts hit limits fast. Hot sections, actuators, and seals burn down hours long before headlines notice. Stockpiles help but decay. Software keys and technical data also expire or need renewal. If a shipment pauses for one missing license, pilots fly less, training backlogs grow, and maintenance cannibalization rises. Even friendly yes answers arriving late function like soft no's. The fix is boring, not cinematic. Pre-cleared licenses, dual-qualified MRO inside the alliance, interchangeable modules, and shared inventories. Readiness becomes logistics math. Minutes saved upstream convert directly into sorties delivered. Measure it, rehearse it, fund it relentlessly. There's a fair counter case. Inside NATO, US and Swedish interests are aligned more often than not. Export controls don't exist to sabotage allies. They're meant to protect sensitive tech and coordinate coalition policy. In crises, approvals can move quickly, sometimes faster than national bureaucracies elsewhere. And Gripen's strengths are real: superb electronic warfare, low operating cost, high availability, and a doctrine that treats rough roads like runways. Finally, most modern jets carry foreign dependencies. The issue isn't singling out Sweden, it's recognizing that governance over parts is now part of air power. The risk is concentration. A single foreign-controlled engine creates a legal choke point on spares, upgrades, and re-exports. The trade-off? Gripen's affordability and road war genius versus dependence on approvals outside Sweden. Mitigations exist: stockpiles, licensed MRO, pre-cleared tech release, parallel suppliers. But they cost money and political capital. Autonomy improves only when contracts and laws are redesigned, not slogans. The fatal flaw isn't the airframe, it's governance. A foreign-controlled engine means approvals can throttle spares and upgrades. In peacetime, it's friction. In wartime, it can quietly drain sortie tempo.